Hello, everybody. We are Group 2. For our Tableau final project, we will be talking about EV charging station strategic recommendation. My name is Albert.
My name is Kendrick.
I'm Thomas.
And I'm Joshua.
Great. So I'll go ahead and pass this to Thomas.
Thanks, Albert. It's undeniable the world is experiencing more erratic weather patterns than ever before. From more severe storms to hotter temperatures to increased droughts, it is evident that the world needs to adapt a more environmentally friendly society. The United States has taken steps towards this direction by reducing the costs of electric vehicles through government subsidies, leading to a quadrupling of the number of electric vehicles on the road. While this is good news for the environment, adoption has started to slow as there's lacking infrastructure around the United States to support the number of electric vehicles. As a part of this initiative, the White House has announced a goal of 500,000 electric vehicle charging stations installed by the end of 2030. Scaling and implementing infrastructure can be a tricky endeavor, and we have prepared a set of visuals to help guide these decisions. Next slide. Our approach in formulating a strategy consists of two parts: identifying high priority states and potential partners who could help install and maintain the charging stations. Firstly, we wanted to identify which states had the highest EV registration counts and also take a look at the number of charging stations. If we could move over to the Tableau registration heat map, we can see that California is leading in the total amount of electric vehicles on the road. However, we also see that there are greatly more electric vehicle charging stations available in California. And so our analyses in there, we wanted to account for states like this, like New York, and really pinpoint states that had the highest potential to increase the adoption. And also, adoption is critical. However, we also wanted to identify potential partnerships to also speed up the implementation, because we all know that doing anything individually can really slow down endeavors and the adoption and installation of infrastructure. And I'll pass it on to Kendrick.
Not quite yet. I'm going to go ahead and talk about the importance of EV chargers by region. So just taking a quick look at my Tableau, what I did was the data presented to us only offered data by state, and I went ahead and broke it down by region. I created a new hierarchy, and then I made a filter, and then I made these buttons so we could get a clear understanding of where EV chargers are lacking. So there's no doubt that the North has the most EV chargers. But what I wanted to examine was the states with the least amount of chargers. And that is the North, which makes sense. It's not very vehicle driven, but I wanted to create this view to make it simpler for developers or future prospects to understand where there's a market and a potential market for EV chargers. So why is this view important? Firstly, market demand and adoption. By analyzing the concentration of EV chargers in different regions, stakeholders can gauge the level of demand and adoption of electric vehicles. Regions with a higher number of EV chargers may indicate greater consumer interest and demand for electric vehicles. 2. Infrastructure development. Understanding the distribution of EV chargers helps policymakers and infrastructure planners identify areas that require additional charging infrastructure. This information can inform decisions about where to prioritize investments in charging stations to support the growth of the EV market. Third, urban planning and transportation. For urban planners and city officials, knowledge of EV charger distribution can influence transportation and infrastructure planning. It can help identify optimal locations for charging stations and promote electric vehicle use and public transportation. Fourth, business opportunities. Businesses in the EV ecosystem, such as charging station operators, automotive manufacturers, and energy companies, can use data on EV charger distribution to identify market opportunities and potential areas for expansion. They can strategically position themselves to serve regions with a high demand for EV charging services. And lastly, environmental impact. The distribution of EV chargers can also shed light on the environmental impact of electric vehicles. Areas with a higher concentration of chargers may experience reduced greenhouse gas emissions from transportation, contributing to local air quality improvements and overall environmental sustainability. And now I'll hand it over to Kendrick.
Hi, everyone. We'll start off with the Tableau views that I've created. So we can go over there, Albert. Okay, in my first dashboard, I went ahead and created two views, one being the top 20 chargers by state. I figured that having all 50 chargers or all 50 states here wouldn't be as digestible as just displaying 20. So as we can see here, the most amount of chargers are located in California, New York, and Florida, respectively. And the conclusion I've drawn when creating this visualization is that the most amount of chargers are typically located in coastal areas, and that's driven by a few factors that I'll go more in detail in a bit. My second view is goes over the top EV registration. Oh, if you can go back, Albert. Sorry. Top EV registration by state. Again, that being California, Florida, and Texas this time. So the two aren't directly connected in a sense. They're not. What I mean by that is Texas being third for registration, whereas Florida is third in chargers. However, they are very similar. So identifying those key areas where there's a high amount of EV registration compared to the amount of chargers is really important point to analyze, just to ensure that there are enough chargers to meet the demand of EV registration. And if we can go on to the next dashboard, please. Okay, and again here I created two views. The first one being the registration forecast. The data collected in this data set was collected in 2022, and that goes over the amount of EV cars that are on the road as of 2022. And expanding on that, there's also two forecasted amounts, one being 3.3 million for 2023, and we see another sharp increase up to 4.5 million in 2024. And in the second view, I have total charges by year. As you can see, charges didn't really pick up at all up until 2010, and towards 2018 to 2020, we see that it exponentially picks up, and that's directly due to the amount of EV electric vehicles that are now on the roads today. And if we can go back to the presentation, please, Albert. So I first wanted to go over the main factors that's driving EV adoption. So EV adoption is mainly driven by three factors, one being government policies, next being automaker investments, and the last being technological advancements. Government policies, this goes, many governments, both at the state and federal level, are implementing policies to boost the demand for electric vehicles. This is done through a variety of avenues, such as offering tax credits and exemptions from certain fees when you own an electric vehicle. In terms of the tax credit, I know California offers, or I believe it's the federal level, that they offer a $7,500 rebate on electric vehicles, which has allowed a broader audience to enter the market such as myself. But next, going into the automaker investments, many of the as we see more automakers entering the electric vehicle space, with some companies even planning to go fully electric within the next decade or so, we can see that a lot of these companies are doubling down on this industry. Um, and the competition has really led to the innovation of, batteries and things of that nature. A lot of times, the hesitations when buying an electric vehicle comes with the range and accessibility to a charger and things along that nature. So over time, these companies are looking to improve on the battery and the overall infrastructure, which we are addressing here today of the chargers. But next, going into the chargers by state. Um, the charges are usually, or the implementation is driven by the government and private investors. In terms of the government, it's supported through grants and other measures that government officials look to support. As we can see, like California has a lot of initiatives to boost their um, infrastructure of charging stations just due to the pure amount of electric vehicles on the road here today. In terms of private investors, the electric vehicle market is something that these investors want to capitalize on, as we are uh, in the early stages relatively in the electric vehicles. So we have a lot of different charger charging networks looking to enter the market as well. And lastly, in urban planning, this goes over the government looking to provide public spaces for charging, simply as adding them into a public parking lot and things of that nature, just to overall increase accessibility to these chargers. Next, going over the total charges by year. As we saw in the visualizations presented, there's been a sharp increase in charges. However, in some certain demographic areas, there seems to be a lack thereof, such in the region as the Midwest. There's not much infrastructure there for electric vehicles, which has led to a lower adoption rate in those areas. And lastly, just going over the registration forecast. As Thomas mentioned in the beginning, the U.S. wants to create 500,000 chargers across the country, and so with this such an ambitious goal, we can expect a sharp increase of electric vehicle adoptions over year by year. As we saw in the visualization itself, we saw the forecasted amount for the next 2 years was about 1.1 million respectively. And going over the charger networks, I'll now pass it on to Joshua, who will go more into detail.
So I'll be talking about the EV network trends, how they've improved or declined over the years, what are the popular EV networks, charger access types and their importance, and what we reflect from these findings. So going into my dashboard, we can see the map. So as we use the slider to go through the years, we can see how the dots representing companies have increased throughout the years. And we also see that earlier there were more non-networked or individual EV companies, but eventually we see a growth of network companies and a substantial increase in charging stations. And key players like ChargePoint and Tesla Destination have notably contributed to this upward trajectory. In considering the charging industry, advocating for smaller EV networks presents an avenue for fostering creativity and prevent monopolies. So smaller networks possess the flexibility to explore innovative solutions and diverse service models, tailoring their offerings to local communities and individual user needs. So this encouragement not only sparks entrepreneurship, but also cultivates healthy competition, mitigating the risk of a single dominant player. And this competitive environment can lead to reduced costs, heightened innovation, and more personalized user experiences. Supporting smaller networks represents an opportunity to construct a dynamic and diverse charging infrastructure which is adaptable to local contexts, promoting innovation and contributing to a more inclusive and competitive market. So as we look at the top graph, we can see that in the north, south, west, and Midwest, ChargePoint is leading all over, followed by non-networks, and third being Tesla Destination. So another factor depends on what type of chargers, which is called charger access types. So whether it be public or private, they are an integral element shaping the EV charging landscape. So public charging stations are accessible to everyone, which enhance convenience and promote widespread EV adoption, fostering inclusivity in high traffic areas and public spaces. In contrast, private charging stations cater to specific groups, such as employees or residents, providing a more personalized charging experience. In our data set, a significant difference is evident between public and private charging stations, with the majority falling under the public access type. And this underscores a trend towards prioritizing accessibility and inclusivity in the EV charging infrastructure. So the higher count of public charging stations reflects a commitment to encouraging EV adoption on a broader scale. While public stations play a crucial role, acknowledging the need of user groups benefiting from private solutions remains essential. The dataset emphasizes the current focus on building a robust public charging network to ensure widespread availability and easy access for all EV users. And so now we'll be going on to the conclusion.
Thank you, Joshua. In conclusion, from our analyses, we were able to pinpoint 8 high priority states that had the most amount of EV registrations: Pennsylvania, Virginia, Texas, North Carolina, New Jersey, Oregon, Arizona, and Washington. From there, we would want to partner with Tesla, ChargePoint, Blink, Volta, EVgo Network, Semicharge, and Webasto to speed up infrastructure installation. EV charging stations would need to grow 137% year over year to reach the goal of 500,000. And we believe that these 8 states would beat the required growth percentage, as there is already a considerable amount of EVs on the road in those states. Thank you for listening.